Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this overview of the deficiency tracking screen on opLYNX Central. First thing to note is how to get to the deficiency tracking screen. So once you're logged into opLYNX Central, what you'll need to do is just make sure you go to the Show All under Reports, Show All, and you should see the deficiency tracking screen come up. What I like to do is also click on the star here to add it as a favorite, so that anytime you log into opLYNX Central, it'll show up under your favorites right away, and then also conveniently available under the favorites menu. So I'm just going to click on the deficiency tracking icon. You'll see this little thing flash, and the deficiency screen will come up. I also like to make this full screen just to give myself a little bit more real estate, which you can do by clicking on this little button down in the bottom right, and that'll blow you up to full screen. So the first thing we should discuss is, what do we mean by a deficiency? So what we have done is taken all of the operational forms that are relevant to your particular area, whether it be fire extinguishers or D55s or chemical rates or well inspections or lease inspections or anything like that, and identified any of the fields in there that signal an error or something that you'd like to flag up the chain as something that needs to be fixed or repaired or was not in a satisfactory state, i.e. it was a deficiency on that form. So this could be things from an IWAC station wasn't filled, or maybe there was a tank where the secondary containment wasn't up to snuff, or we can even get fancy and do things like maybe the target rate versus the actual rate on your chemical tracking are out by a certain percentage. And all those things that we can track and trend. So there are three screens on the deficiency tracking VI. We're going to go through all of them one by one. The main one that comes up first is called the active case summary. So what do we mean by an active deficiency? An active deficiency are things that the last time an operator visited that site or that component or that tank, whatever the case may be, the last time that operator was there, what things did they note on the sheet that were in an error condition or a deficient state? So like we mentioned before, maybe you went to a particular IWAC station and it wasn't filled this time. What do we mean by active is that, let's say in July you went to that IWAC station and it wasn't filled. Somebody went and fixed it, you come back in August and now it is filled, you will not see that deficiency listed anymore on the active page because it's no longer active. It's been repaired or resolved. So these are only, and so what do we mean by a component or a unit? So there could be many things at a surface location. There could be a tank, there could be, like we said, several different fire extinguishers or whatever the case may be. It's a unit or an entity or a component that we're tracking on an individual basis on that form. And for the purposes of this dashboard, what we have listed under the unit descriptions signal an individual or unique thing that we're tracking as a component. You can see, for example, here at the 304 compressor, same surface location, there are two different things that we're tracking. There's a glycol storage tank and a floor drain. And they each have their own individual D55 tank inspection at that same compressor, that same surface location. So those are two individual components that each might have active deficiencies. So just kind of looking through this screen, the first thing we can do, we can be filtering down to different types of forms that we put into the deficiency tracker. So you can see in here, we have all the D55s, we have the chemical rate tracking, we have fire extinguishers, we have all sorts of different inspections. We can filter down to those individually. We'll get to that. You can also filter down to a specific region or run or roll. So in this case, maybe I just want to see Edson North. We can also filter down to a specific surface or unit or component like we just described. So 1 of 14. And if you hover over here, you'll get more information. You can see that's a license number, 407113. You can also search in here for any particular thing like a glycol tank, and you'll see anything that has glycol in it is now going to come up. There's the glycol expansion tank for 10 of 18. You could filter down to that. And then we're also looking at a filtered date range. When was this form completed? Right now, we're filtering from everything from January 1st, year 2000, so basically beginning of time, to today being September 9th, 2021. And you can filter this down to a single month or 2 months or whatever when the operator may have completed it. We'll come back to these buttons here, but you can also just do a more general search of things in using the search bar. Underneath here, we've got basically 5 main boxes. So the first thing we see is we've got a list of how many unique units or sites that have a deficiency in any one of the forms that we filter down to based on region or role. So we've got Wildcat, Edson, Central. We also are listing how many units or sites have a deficiency by form type. So I can see that there's just about 1,100 different things that have some sort of a deficiency with my D55s. And this particular graph gets more useful once we drill down to a particular type of form, but you can start to get a sense of what is our largest contributor to where we are seeing any sort of a deficiency. Coming down to the bottom right, we're also getting kind of a top end list of where I'm seeing what types of deficiencies. So in this particular case, my chemical rate tracking, target versus actual exceeds 10% variance is kind of one of the top things that we're detecting when we have all the forms at the top of the list. And this is where it's worth noting, one of the main features that we have in here is that we can see where a deficiency exists, and we can also see when something is new, i.e. in the example I gave at the beginning of this video, if we were in July and maybe there was the Iowa station was full. I come into August and now that Iowa station is not full. That would flag as something new since the last time the operator visited. So in that way, we can keep track of things that are kind of persisting as time goes on, and also be able to see things that are brand new that maybe have not been flagged up the chain since the last time you ran this particular dashboard. And then at the bottom left is kind of the meat and potatoes of this, which is giving you all the details of those deficiencies. So I see that at this particular 304 compressor, I had total deficiencies were 1. One of those was new. There's my surface location. The last time I completed the form, it was a D55. And if I blow this thing up into what they call focus mode within the dashboard, I can see that these are all the deficiencies that were noted on that particular form. And these are the things that were new since the last time someone was at that particular entity. So in the row above, I've also got, I can see that there were 4 deficiencies. All 4 of them were new. And so we just have a repeat between what's in the all deficiencies and the new deficiencies box. There's also some comments, who completed the form, what run was involved. And then this sort column is just for the purposes of a dashboard, and you can ignore that particular column on the far right. But you can scroll down here and start to get a sense of what is new, what's existed. You can see there's some blank things in here on this particular row. WMIS was noted on the form, but it's not new, so it's blank under the new column. One of the things we can also do in here is export that data if you want, and you can basically do that by clicking on the title somewhere here just to kind of lock that widget into memory, and you'll see these 3 dots appear on the right, and you can do an export off to Excel from there. And there's all sorts of fun interactive things we can do on this particular form. So if I want to see all the line items on this table that have a D55 WMIS as an issue, I can click on that row in here, and it's going to filter everything down to here that has WMIS as a deficiency on that particular row. And of course, from there, you can export that data. We also see that up at the top, we've filtered down to which runs are affected by that particular deficiency that I clicked on. You can also multi-click in here just by holding in the control button. So maybe I want to see everything that had WMIS. I want to see everything that had the auto overfill shutdown test that maybe failed, and maybe everything that had a corrective action required flag on that form. I'm just control clicking, and now I'm adding all 3 of those items in there, and you see that all the boxes have adjusted to compensate for what I want to see. And we're still seeing all those particular types of items are now showing up in my table, so I can do a quick little filter of whatever deficiency I'm specifically interested in. This really gets quite interesting if you just kind of want to look at a D55 or maybe a monthly inspection of some sort. You can also do that up here. Just show me the D55s, and then I'm only going to see that particular list everywhere. And this little pie chart starts to look a little cleaner and makes a little bit more sense. If I only want to see in this particular table forms that had something that flagged as new, I can just remove the pre-existing deficiencies out of that toggle box there. And now I'm only going to see new forms that have something in the new box down there. So another way to see this is just kind of an overview based on run and based on form type. Maybe I also want to see this, all the deficiencies listed by site. I'm just going to clear this filter out of here for now, so that I'm going back to seeing all the forms and all the deficiency types, and go over to this active site list and map. And what this is going to show you is this is a different view of the same information, but now I have a table listed by surface location, then by form, and all the sites that had something in it. And by default, this table is going to show you the surface locations that have the most deficiencies in it from most to least. So now I have a list that if I'm going to go out to this particular site, maybe there's all sorts of tanks or various entities on that surface location that might have something I want to resolve. It looks like in particular 11 of 8 had some sort of an issue with the target versus actual on their chemical injection. If I only want to see things that have to do with eye wash stations or something, for example, you can always do those sorts of filters. There's various eye wash stations that have that sort of compressor. You've also got a bit of a map. You can blow that map up, maybe hand that off to somebody to go and resolve those particular deficiencies, and off you run. One of the kind of interesting examples I like to give in here is to just be able to type, where do I have an issue with weeds? Maybe I want to send my weed sprayer out there. I can go up to my deficiency type here and type weeds. And I'm going to start seeing the forms that have weeds as something that is listed on that form. And I'm just going to click on both of those. So I'm now seeing only those error codes that have to do with weeds. I've got a map that shows me where the weeds are, and I've also got a site-by-site list. Something that we also like to be able to track, and that leads me to the third and final form, and I'm just going to clear the filters out of here again, is historical tracking. So instead of just dealing with what are the active things that are going on right now, I want to get some trending data. Is this getting better or worse over time? And maybe I want to be able to see all the historical forms, no matter whether they're active or not. And that's what this third tab allows you to do. So now in the top left, we have all the forms that were completed by month. Green being those forms that had absolutely no deficiencies in them whatsoever, and red had at least one. And the blue line in here is showing us on a percentage basis the percent of forms that had some sort of a deficiency. So this is now your historical trending. Are we getting better or worse over time on any particular item? So once again, I can look at my WMIS items, and this particular graph, you can see will filter down just to show you what ratio of those red bars had WMIS in them. And my trend line has adjusted to show me whether I'm trending up or down with time. We also have this left screen in here has adapted to show me all the forms, regardless of when they took place, not just active, but going all the way back in time based on this completion date, all the forms that were relevant. So you can see this is the exact same ID, the exact same pop tank at that storage yard, just with different complete dates and times. An X in here indicates if there was some sort of deficiency in there. If there wasn't, there'd be a green check mark. Because I'm filtered on D55 WMIS, all of these are going to show me some sort of a deficiency. If I uncheck that, you can see I do have ones that are green check mark. There was nothing in that particular fire extinguisher, no deficiencies noted, nothing new, no comments. On all these forms, you can see that there's a little box over here with a link to it. Clicking that will bring you to the form on opLYNX Central if there's something in there you need to fix.